How to construct a wet room. During this video we will show you a real-life wet room being constructed and will cover the following topics: planning your wet room, constructing your wet room floor, waterproofing a wet room, and tiling and grouting. Planning your wet room, an important first step. The first thing to do when starting a wet room project is to work out your floor plan. Aquatechnic will be happy to help with this, but for now we will briefly look at the main areas to consider. Joist and waste positions. It is much easier to have your waste pipe running in the same direction as the joists rather than across them. It is sometimes possible to core through joists to run a waste pipe, but this is governed by building regulations and is limited to no more than 25% of the joist depth. A wet room can also be constructed on a raised deck built on top of the original floor. However, it is best to plan for the waste pipe to be running parallel to the joists and reasonably close to an existing soil pipe. In order to plan this properly, it is necessary as a first step to check the direction and position of joists and the location of the soil pipe. Wet room layout. When planning the layout of your wet room, think carefully about how you will be using the room and the ideal position for not only the shower but all other areas such as toilets, sinks and baths. Also consider the door and window positions in relation to the shower area. In the picture on the left, water from the shower area will splash over the toilet and could also run along the door threshold. In the picture on the right, the position of the shower in relation to the door and the addition of a simple glass panel creates a far more practical solution, confining splashes to an acceptable area. Extra noggins and tray support. It is well worth producing a plan showing the joist positions in relation to your planned shower tray former. The edges of the shower tray former must be supported by joists or noggins running between the joists. There also needs to be sufficient room on the top of the joist to make a butt joint between the edge of the former and the rest of the floor. This process is not difficult but takes a bit of thinking about. It is sometimes easiest to build a supportive subfloor within the original joist space under the whole shower area. Using one of Aquatechnic's made-to-measure shower tray formers can save a lot of time, as the exact size and waste position can be manufactured to suit the individual wet room. Installing the wet room floor, the base of every good wet room. Here we are constructing a new wet room on a wooden joisted floor. We can see the joists are installed with a wooden stud partition at the back of the room. This is to contain the pipework for the shower. Now extra noggins have been installed to support all edges of the shower tray former. The area in the centre of the picture has been prepared ready to take the waste support. This involved installing battens onto the sides of the joists 24 mm down from the top. The waste support sits on top of the battens and lines up perfectly with the top of the joists. It is also possible to take the same approach to the whole area under the shower tray former using 24 mm thick plywood to build a supportive subfloor within the joist space. At this stage we recommend double checking that the waste support lines up correctly with the hole in the shower tray former. We can now fit the supplied waste gully into the waste support. Pipework is normally solvent welded for a really secure connection. Joints can be loose fitted to start with, but don't forget to solvent weld them before fitting the tray. For plastic waste pipes, the slope to fall should be a minimum 2%. Now screw the waste down to the waste support. The waste support can now be screwed down to the battens that you fitted earlier. Once the pipework is all connected, we recommend pouring water into the waste to double check for any drips prior to fixing down the shower tray former. Now with the waste fully installed, we can fit the Aquatechnic birch plywood shower tray former. It is very important that the shower tray former is level all around the edge, so check this with a spirit level. The tray can now be fixed to the joists all around its perimeter. We recommend using 50mm number 8 countersunk screws at 225mm centres. Drill pilot holes first, then countersink before inserting and tightening the screws. Sweep off the tray before installing the rest of the floor. The flooring in the wet room must match the thickness of the Aquatechnic shower tray former, which is 24mm thick. This can be achieved by installing 6mm thick WBP plywood over the top of an existing 18mm flooring, or better still, replacing the entire floor with 24mm WBP plywood. All plywood must be securely fixed to the joists using countersunk screws. The flooring outside the shower area should be solid and level with no bounce to it. We now have a solid wet room floor with a slope to falls and a waste gully located at the lowest point in the room. We are now ready for waterproofing. Wet room tanking with an approved waterproofing system. All tiled wet rooms must be waterproofed with a CE marked approved wet room tanking system. Aquaproof system has a European technical approval specifically for the waterproofing of wet rooms. The Aquaproof system is available in kit form or as individual components. This is our 10 square metre shower kit. It consists of 2 Aquaproof pipe sleeves, 1 large sleeve, 9 kilograms of Aquaproof compound, 2 kilograms of Aquaproof primer and a 15 linear metre roll of Aquaproof tape. Start by shaking the Aquaproof primer thoroughly before decanting into a paint kettle and applying with a brush. Aquaproof primer is required for all porous surfaces. These include plaster, plasterboard, plywood and cement-faced construction boards. The shower tray former is pre-coated and does not require re-priming. Next we are going to install the large sleeve into the drainage gully. Start off by unscrewing the 2 retaining bolts and removing the dust cover. There are a further 4 retaining bolts securing the clamping ring. Remove these and remove the clamping ring. Brush off any sawdust or other foreign material that could potentially damage the sleeve. Make sure the large sleeve is positioned centrally over the waste outlet. Fold back each side in turn and apply the Aquaproof compound by brush between the back of the sleeve and the shower tray former. The compound should extend under the sleeve by about 5 centimeters. Once all edges of the sleeve are bedded into the fresh compound, we brush more compound 5 centimeters over the sleeve, over the fabric border and a further 5 centimeters onto the shower tray former. We now need to allow the compound to dry. In the meantime, we will get on with the rest of the tanking. Here we have an internal corner, an area where the wall-floor junction turns inwards by 90 degrees. We are going to use an Aquaproof pre-formed internal corner to ensure a waterproof seal. We start off by brushing Aquaproof compound into the corner, covering an area slightly larger than the pre-formed corner. We then push the Aquaproof corner into the fresh compound and use the brush to make sure all the fabric borders are laying against the wall and floor before overbrushing with a further coat of the compound. Pre-formed external corners can be applied in the same manner. Corners can also be fabricated on site using the Aquaproof tape. Start off by applying the Aquaproof compound in the same manner as for the preformed corners. Next take a 200mm strip of Aquaproof tape, cut it centrally halfway through the width of the tape. This piece can now be turned around the corner and bedded into the compound. You can see that the cut in the tape splays out to form a square on the floor where there is currently no tape. We can now apply another coat of aquaproof compound over the entire corner area. A second piece of tape is cut exactly the same as the first piece, but this time it is applied diagonally across the corner with the cut facing upwards. The corner is then overpainted with aquaproof compound, making sure all tape edges are well bedded in and laying flat. When all the corners are in place, the aquaproof tape can be applied to the wall floor junctions. Lay the tape out to the required length and cut to size. The tape is applied with the side printed with the Aquatechnic logo facing outwards. Brush apply a generous coat of aquaproof compound 100 mm onto the wall and floor. Immediately press the tape into the fresh compound so that it is half on the wall and half on the floor. Overlap the previously applied corners by at least 50 mm. Use a paintbrush to smooth down the edges and apply a further coat of compound over the entire area of the tape. Any pipe penetrations in the floor or in the wall, if close to the shower area, need to be sealed with aquaproof pipe sleeves. These are applied in much the same way as the tapes and corners. Apply aquaproof compound. Slide the highly elasticated sleeve over the pipe and bed into the fresh compound. A further coat of aquaproof compound is then applied over the sleeve. As well as installing aquaproof tape at all the wall floor junctions, we also install it at all joints. Here we can see the joint between the shower tray former and the plywood flooring. The tape is applied in exactly the same way as on the wall floor junctions. Aquaproof tape must also be applied over all screw heads. Most of the screw heads will be along the edges of the flooring sheets where they will be covered with the jointing tape anyway, but individual screws that are in the middle of the sheet can be covered with a small patch of aquaproof tape. Now all the detailing is finished, we can apply the first full coat of aquaproof compound. For this we recommend the use of a short nap fur roller. Use the roller to gently roll out the aquaproof onto the walls and floor without spreading the material too thinly. The aquaproof is applied at a total thickness of approximately 1 mm. This is normally achieved in 2 coats, each ½ mm thick. The aquaproof is applied over the entire wet room floor with a turn-up of at least 100 mm onto the walls. In the immediate shower area, the walls are completely tanked. As the distance from the shower head increases, the tanking can be brought down at an angle until it reaches 100 mm from the floor. In this way, all areas of the wall subject to running water or significant splash water are fully protected. The time between coats of aquaproof compound will vary depending on temperature and humidity, but will normally be at least 4 hours. It is easy to see when the aquaproof is ready for overcoating, as it dries to a darker shade of grey. This is very useful when applying the second coat, as it's easy to see if you have missed anywhere. We now have a fully tanked wet room with a slope to falls in the immediate shower area. In this wet room, Eberco underfloor heating mat has been installed. This can be bonded directly to the aquaproof or installed within a screed prior to tanking. Before tiling, we have to install the clamping ring into the waist. The 4 screw holes in the clamping ring need to align with the 4 larger threaded holes in the waist body. Firmly push the clamping ring into position, stretching the sleeve into the waist. An extra pair of hands is useful to hold the clamping ring in place. Pierce the large sleeve with a pointed tool in the 4 screw positions prior to inserting the screws. Only do this with the ring held down into its final position and don't allow the ring to move until all 4 screws are tightened into place. Trim off any excess sleeve showing at the inside edge of the clamping ring with a Stanley knife or similar. Make sure the inner face of the waist flange is clean and free from debris, as the rubber gasket in the waist top will seal against this edge. Line up the 2 holes in the waist cover plate with the 2 remaining holes in the clamping ring and push down firmly into place. This is a tight resistance fit. Now secure the 2 supplied screws. Tiling and grouting, the final step. Mark up the tile cut lines in the area of the slope to falls, starting at the stainless steel tile set frame and then marking diagonally from the 4 corners of the tile set to the 4 corners of the sloped area. The tiles are then cut to intersect the diagonal lines. It is easiest to cut all the tiles prior to bedding into the tile adhesive. When all the tiles are cut to size, fix them into place with a normal, flexible and waterproof tile adhesive. This tile cut pattern is more complicated than most because the floor tiling was installed in an offset brick style pattern. Care must be taken when applying the tile adhesive to the slope to falls area. Ensure the thickness is even and the full slope to falls is maintained. The tiling in the rest of the wet room is applied in a normal manner. If any battens are tacked to the walls for temporary supporting of the wall tiles, then the nail holes must be filled with aquaproof compound. When all the tiles are cut and bedded down, insert the tile set frame into the tile adhesive so that the top of the frame is level with the adjoining tiles. Waterproof tile grout is applied exactly as normal, filling all gaps between the tiles. The finished wet room, where all your hard work pays off. The wet room area is sloped to falls with a top access waist at the lowest point in the room. The solid stainless steel tile set, there are 6 designs to choose from, is placed in the tile set frame. This wet room features our traditional shower tray former, but we also supply linear drain versions. This wet room is fully waterproofed with a flexible CE marked aquaproof tanking system for long-term peace of mind and many years of enjoyable showering.